versus BJ Dandamoody. Council, state your appearances, please.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning. Still Jonathan Emmons on behalf of the people.
Good morning, Honor. Attorney Matt Hauser here on behalf of Mr. Dan Moody.
All right. Date and time set for sentencing on the probation violation. Who would like to go first?
Yeah, thank you. If I may, we've had pretty extensive negotiations and discussions from all parties in this matter. I think that there's, as of course, where there was a recommendation for jail time, I think that based on after all of those discussions, I think there's a change in that recommendation. I believe that all the parties are going to ask the court to adopt that recommendation from probation. I will say for the record, I've reached out to the 22nd Circuit Court to figure out what's going on with the PPO. There was a case filed, 2277 PH, according to Betty Joe, who is Judge Kunke's judicial coordinator. That case, that PPO is active. Odyssey registers it as the case being closed. Since Judge Kunke doesn't do PPOs anymore, it's been transferred to another judge. I'm still trying to figure out who that is. For the court's satisfaction, though, I've already prepared the paperwork in case a new one needs to be filed. And so hopefully we can get that all taken care of within the next 24 hours.
Okay, very good.
I guess first off, Your Honor, as it relates to PPO, yes, the defense would stipulate to PPO be extended and obviously ensure that any and all paperwork that needs to be processed does get processed. Back in late fall of last year, right before it came to this court, before sentencing, the motion to modify the PPO was filed by my office. We did agree to that 5-year extension, and we stand again today will of course abide by what we agreed to at that time. We have received a copy of the updated recommendation from the probation department. And there is a agreement. We would just like to be heard as it relates to how the jail time is to be served. It would be the request of the defense that multiple weekends be served, and the reason for that is to ensure that the intensive therapy scheduled to begin tomorrow. I believe there's a hour and a half block of time set aside with Dr. Farina, who joins us in the courtroom here today. Dr. Farina and Dr. Farina and Mr. Dandamoody will be meeting every day, Monday through Friday. They're going to increase treatment from 3 days to 5 days a week. Getting into this treatment will be absolutely critical to ensuring this sort of behavior does not occur again. And Mr. Dandamoody is going to be spending time in jail. That's going to further set us back from accomplishing that goal. More importantly, Dr. Farino has known Mr. Dandamoody for, if my recollection serves me correct, about 10 years. Concerned that if Mr. Dandamoody is not able to continue treatment, that Dr. Farino's practice and available times may fill up as we look upwards of 85 days out. That would mean that when Mr. Dandamoody is released from the Washtenaw County Jail, he may need to now seek a new doctor and almost sort of start from square one, redevelop that personal connection, that personal relationship, which could then further impact the successfulness of his treatment. The type of intensive the type of intensive treatment that he is on has a big point that has been a talk therapy method, and what that means is there's this need almost on an everyday basis, as we've seen Dr. Farina to be in contact with Mr. Dandamoody. That break couldn't cause more harm than good. And most importantly, as part of this treatment, the stability within Mr. Dandamoody's life is also critical for the long-term success. Any break in that again sets us back and potentially leaves us in a worse position when Mr. Dandamoody is released and makes the likelihood of a positive outcome a little more harder to obtain. And again, as I stated last week, if the court has any further questions as it relates to the treatment itself, Mr. Farino, sorry, Dr. Farino is here, and of course can provide a likely far more detailed and thorough explanation than myself. Thank you.
Well, I will hear from anybody before I announce sentence. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. The fundamental question from this court standpoint is that, at least initially, is that while he's under this treatment, I mean, this gentleman hasn't made it a year from the time I sentenced him, before we start getting these violations. And it's not just a simple violation of one reach out and contact. I got 160 communications to this young lady. So for that to occur basically over it's like about a 3-week period of time, where was the treatment then? Sir, you can come up to the podium and address the court if that's what you want to do.
Yes, I think that's a really important question. Thank you.
Yes, at this time, I would defer that question to Dr. Farino, as he's in a better position than myself to answer that, Your Honor. And I guess, and just for the record, while it was less than a year than when Mr. Danamudi was sentenced, this case began in February 22, so it was more than a year in which communication took place. Just so the record.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm Dr. Farino. I'm a board certified psychiatrist licensed here in the state of Michigan. I've known Mr. Danamudi for 10 years. When these events occurred, initially, Mr. Danamudi was in an actively psychotic state. He thought he owned the pyramids of Giza. He thought God was in his living room. He thought that he was responsible for putting the moon in the sky at night. He thought he was the president of the University of Michigan and owned the University of Michigan. He thought that Ms. Hodge was 4 gods in one, several Indian gods, several, also the Virgin.
The courtroom opens and the stalker immediately starts acting out, interrupting, trying to correct the judge, and telling his own delusional stories. Neutral face man face palming. Judge Simpson calmly warns him at first, but when he keeps talking over her, she slams a file on the desk and says, "Stop talking. This is MY courtroom." The entire courtroom freezes. Only the judge's stern voice fills the room. Flush-faced woman Judge High Voltage. This clip is pure tension building. You can clearly see her patience running out.
Mary, I believe. He also believed that he had to protect himself from Jennifer Aniston, who, along with other religious fanatics, was going to try to kill him. And he also urged people not to eat beef because the Indian god responsible for the protection of animals would come down and destroy us. That was his state of mind when these were sent. He was hospitalized back in January. The diagnosis at that time was bipolar 1 and affective psychosis. Affect is just the word that psychiatrists use for mood. So basically, people tend to not understand that psychosis doesn't just happen with schizophrenia. Psychosis can also happen when a person gets either too depressed or too manic. So they made at that time a diagnosis of mania-induced psychosis. Mr. Danamudi came out and returned to treatment with me. He had been on a treatment break from me. He called me up and basically said, I'm really sick. Can I come back? I said, of course. He started seeing me 3 days a week. And at that time, he was also started on an antipsychotic medication called Latuda and an anti-manic medication called lithium, which I think people are familiar with. During the summer, that stopped the behavior. He got much better. And there were no contacts for 18 months. If Mr. Danamudi were somebody that didn't care about the law or was a typical stalking case where he wanted to demean, humiliate his victim, that sort of thing, he would have contacted all along. That's what we see. I've treated the victims of those.
That's not true, but go ahead.
So anyway, what we see at this point is that over the summer, he had an extremely physically demanding job. where he was working profuse. He was working in extreme heat and doing a lot of lifting. His lithium level was adjusted, I think, downward. It was getting high. And he works at the Salvation Army, where you see as a donation attendant. So he's lifting a lot of heavy things all the time. When the giving season, which I guess is in the summer, when that giving season was over and the weather cooled, he stopped being essentially dehydrated, and his lithium level went from 1.0 to 0.2. And what you see is a classic acute manic episode, sudden onset, sudden productivity behavior. Again, the fact that he sent 160 emails actually argues for the mania, Your Honor. It's a sudden burst of hyper goal directed
Over a 3-week period.
That's classic for mania, Your Honor. Mania is
I
especially.
understand that, Doctor.
Yes, sir.
What I'm indicating, I guess my question, I'm assuming that you'll get to it eventually,
Yes, I will.
is why this wasn't seen by you
Your Honor,
if you were seeing him so often.
Your Honor, mania is a tricky thing to control. I did notice that Mr. Danamuti's behavior was starting to become off, but there's a medical ethics question here. Mr. Danamuti is not a physical threat to anyone. The Tarasoff ruling tells me that if I believe that my client is a physical threat to somebody else.
Sir, I know all of that.
Well,
that doesn't answer my question.
So, Your Honor, I could have hospitalized him. I could have involuntarily committed him. That's sometimes necessary with breakthrough manias. However, hospitals are dangerous places, especially mental wards. So if it is at all possible to manage somebody in the outpatient setting, that is the first route of treatment, especially if somebody isn't actually a danger to another person. So that's what we did. And we did manage to get the mania back under control. But breakthrough manias unfortunately happen. They're not a sign that somebody was a bad doctor. And unfortunately, Mr. Danamuti had been doing so well.
Sir, I'm not saying anybody's a bad doctor. I'm not saying anything. I'm trying to figure out why this wasn't seen.
Well, Your Honor, it was seen. The only way to make sure the behavior didn't happen would have been to involuntarily commit Mr. Danamuti. Now, if the court says to me from now on, commit him at the first sign of anything, that's what I'll do. Happy to do that.
I can't order you to do that. And you know that.
So, but what I'm saying is, the fact that it was seen doesn't mean that it can be ameliorated immediately. Manic episodes, especially in severe bipolar illness, often take several weeks to treat. That's typical. It's not unusual that when you have breakthrough manias, they can take several weeks. I've seen them take sometimes a month or two to get back under control. So from a medical standpoint, a 3-week period is completely expectable in the treatment of a breakthrough mania. So what we're going to do in the future to make sure this doesn't happen. So Mr. Danamuti, just take you back for a second, had been stable for 18 months. The medical protocol is that lithium levels, when you're first starting somebody on lithium, you draw somebody every week, then you move to every month. When somebody's been stable for more than a year, you might only draw every 3 months or every 6 months. That's standard protocol. Obviously, what we know now is that Mr. Danamuti is very finicky with the lithium levels. Some patients are, some patients aren't. It might be that lithium is not the best drug for him because his levels vary too much seasonally, for example. It might be that he needs to be switched to a medication like Depakote, that a second antipsychotic medication like Latuda needs to be added on and kept on. And also that talk therapy, which is actually extremely important to reduce the likelihood of mania, needs to increase. Essentially, we're doing a kind of almost hybridization hospital program, like a day hospitalization program, essentially is what we're going to build for him. But it's a process, Your Honor. It's a process for severe illness like this. And sometimes acute manias happen. We treat them. This is a very typical kind of scene. I would like to increase treatment as much as possible so they don't happen again. In order to do that, I need to see Mr. Danamuti as often as possible. He needs to get very frequent medication visits. Those will not be available to him if he's incarcerated. He's going to get sicker and perhaps a lot harder to treat via the kindling effect, which is that every time somebody has one of these episodes, they're more.
In this clip, the defendant completely melts down. He tries to play the victim, saying, "I didn't do anything. They're lying. Judge Simpson immediately opens files, reads messages, calls screenshots, exposing his entire story in front of everyone. Mobile phone file folder collision. The courtroom reacts. Face screaming in fear, face screaming in fear, face screaming in fear. Judge Simpson boldly says, "This is delusional behavior, and it's dangerous." The defendant's face turns white. He finally realizes the game is over. Grimacing face fire. This clip is full of drama. The judge completely owns the courtroom and exposes him fully.
More likely to have an episode, and the episodes become more refractory to treatment with medication and therapy. So the literature shows very clearly that one of the things that is most protective against mania is stable employment and regular daily routine with a meaningful activity. So what I'm asking is that we do the thing that will be most likely to make it so that this doesn't happen again. And again, we're going to use multiple medications this time instead of just one. And I'm going to see him every day of the week. And that's what I'd like to see happen. Interrupting that, Your Honor, could make it so that, I mean, he is going to get manic and psychotic again if we interrupt that, if we interrupt it. And then it's going to be a lot harder to treat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, President. Thank you very much, Ron.
Defendant like to address the court or anything you'd like to say?
Yes, Your Honor.
You can come up to the podium.
Your Honor, if I may, before we address this in court, I think that we've all planned that he's going to plead to this violation, but I don't know.
You already did.
Oh, you already. Great. Okay, thank you. I will take my seat.
Thank you.
Your Honor, I'm just going to read this from this document because it's pretty nervous right now. I'm deeply sorry, Your Honor. I'm especially sorry and remorseful to Ms. Hodge. It was not my intention to cause any distress to her. I am extremely disappointed and surprised that I got manic again after following all of my doctor's recommendations regarding therapy and medication for the past 1.5 years without a single incident. I was not in the right state of mind when I sent those emails and did not understand the nature of what I was doing. Not only emails to Ms. Hodge, but I've sent emails to other people under the same manic episodes. I'm determined to overcome my mental condition and eager to accept my doctor's advice so this never happens again. I'm very sorry, Your Honor. I'm very sorry to Ms. Hodge and their family and all of their close ones for all the pain that I've caused. It was not intentional. I'm not in control of my disease, and I'm sorry.
No, you can stay right there at the podium. Now, so, Mr. Allen. Thank you. And I'll just go back and I'll just indicate that I had sentenced you originally in this case November 14th, 2022. Proceeded along and then you violated, not just in a small way, but in a big way. And this court is just very concerned about the behavior, medical diagnosis or not, because your behavior has an effect on someone else. Severely has that effect on someone else. And the court is of the opinion that some of this may be as a result of mental illness and some of it is not. I've gone through in great detail this case. And this court will certainly having to balance some penalty or some sanction for you in regard to sentencing. Also, this court is very mindful that there's a victim in this case that also needs this court's protection. You were placed on 5 years probation. The reality, and I get counsel's point in terms of when to plea and when things come up. I place you on 5 years probation, you haven't made it a year. And we have this come up. And it's not just small. I mean, it ain't 160. And despite what may be your issues, at least for a period in time, and presumably, should you decide to get treatment and deal with everything, I'm going to do the best I can to make sure that this victim in this case has some semblance of peace that over the course of a number of years continues to be interrupted by you. And so I'm going to make it very clear to you, sir. You bother her again, we're going to be right back here. And you're going to be right back here dealing with me. We can all find reasons, rationales, excuses, whatever for behavior. But like I said, there's somebody on the other end of this. And that's who I'm going to pay attention to. I'm going to continue the probation with the conditions as previously ordered. When available, is to attend intensive mental health treatment, follow all recommended care, including medication protocol. I'm going to further order that the defendant is to use, there's to be no use of electronic communication except for medical and or court purposes. Court purposes would include communication with your attorney, certainly. I am going to order that you serve 85 days in the Washtenaw County Jail for your violations to date. I will consider 30 days. I will consider release after you have served 30 days. I'm going to require upon your release that you be fitted with a GPS tether prior to release from custody, and that tether is to be home confinement until further order of the court. Additional terms of the GPS is that the defendant must remain in Calhoun County, the county of your residence. You are not to go to the following counties: Washtenaw, Monroe, Wayne, Jackson, Livingston, Oakland, Genesee, Saginaw, Bay City, Aranac, Ogama, Crawford, Ascota, Kalkaska, Otsego, Emmett, Grand Traverse, Atrim, or Charlotte. You are not to enter any of those counties in the state of Michigan. There has been an agreement, and to the extent the court intends to enforce part of the plea agreement, that 5-year PPO will be in effect, and counsel has acknowledged that they will make sure that that occurs. I will set a review hearing January 8th, 2024 at 1 p.m. to see where you are at that particular point in time. Counsel, I would, if you want to send me additional medical documentation regarding that in terms of an early release, it would go into my consideration, but I'm not guaranteeing anything in that regard. Defendant is remanded.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you.
In this final heavy clip, Judge Simpson announces her verdict. She reads the stalker's full history, explaining his repeated dangerous behavior, the The courtroom is completely silent, face without mouth. Then, in a deep, commanding voice, she says, "You leave me in no choice. Here is your sentence," and delivers a strict punishment, restraining orders, jail time, probation, everything in one powerful ruling. Collision police scarlight. The stalker is left shocked as court officers escort him out. The clip ends fully dramatic, powerful, and totally viral worthy. Fire woman judge.